OverDrive off and running on a Tuesday, coming off a family day long weekend, and it was a family affair Saturday night at the Bell Center. I'm Mike DiStefano, a.k.a. Al's brother, filling in for Hazy B. We got Jamie Noodles McLennan and Jeff O'Neill, the O-Dog. What's going on, guys? How was your weekend?
Not much.
You were right about the craziness on Saturday, and I've got a bunch of things to say about this Four Nations, but whosever idea it was, bravo, because I don't know if it was Gary sitting in a boardroom with Bill Daly or one of his people that came up with the idea, but to see the people in Montreal with all the jerseys and to see how into it, obviously the game spoke for itself, the craziness, but I don't know why it took so long to come up with something like that. You could tell the players were obviously crazy for it. But just to see the excitement of the fans, all the Sweden jerseys, all the Finn jerseys, the USA, I mean, I'll tell you what, the game, I mean, John Cooper wasn't kidding when he said the game is just better off that this game happened. The whole thing, the whole tournament's been incredible to watch.
It is, honestly, and I was skeptical. I don't know if you heard me ever talk about it, AB. Like, I was like, we kept saying best on best, and I'm like, okay, Russia's not in it. You know, Draisaitl's not playing. Yeah, like it just, to me, so I was wrong. I didn't think guys would, this is a bad saying, but piss a drop. I didn't think guys would really, I thought it was going to be a glorified all-star game. I don't know how you guys felt. Oh, you were in the building.
This.
I did not see 3 fights in the first whatever that
9 seconds into the game. It was insanity. Absolute
I know.
insanity.
The first one happened, guys, and it's like, okay, we got a serious deal here. These guys both want to make a statement. The Kachucks want to make a statement. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, you got one fight out of your system. That'll do it. And then there's the other guy. Brady was basically screaming at Sam Bennett to come on the ice off the bench. And then they're just standing there, and all the players knew it was coming. It was like they started a sword fight before the puck even dropped. And then it was mayhem. And then you could see Miller, who was like, I need to get this out of my system too. And that guy was running around like a crazy. He would have fought the ref if he couldn't fight Borrego. He's like, I'm not coming off the ice until I fight. And it was just like 9 seconds. Then you just watch all the guys in the penalty box, and it's like, I wondered how the game would unfold after that. Would it just be like a big lull because of that emotion, or would it be a crappy game? And then on top of that, Connor McDavid wheels down the ice and scores the best goal of the tournament.
Beautiful.
And the crowd in Montreal, when they're amped up on a Saturday, there's no better crowd in sports. Sorry, people in this area, but that's just the truth. That place went absolutely bonkers. And when that guy scored that goal, I'm like, maybe Canada, they really needed to capitalize on that goal. Like, if they could have piled on top and got 1 or 2 in the first, maybe it could have been curtains on the night. But the USA, man, they played for keeps. Like, the USA, that hockey that's going on in Montreal and Boston, that is big boy hockey.
Oh, yeah.
If you're into what I call it, I said the guys in the tournament that play mini sticks in the hallway like they're at a Pee-wee tournament, they're not effective. Like, you can tell who they are, and they're invisible. There's no time and space. They get hit, and they don't make plays, and they're not effective. And it's not hard to pick out who those guys are. Like, it's big boy stuff. Like Sam Bennett, a player like Sam Bennett, I'm so glad that guy came in the lineup. That guy's not that big of a man, but he plays like he's 6'4". Incredible. Like that Jake Gensel. People think of Jake Gensel as just like a skill guy, a left-handed shot.
Got some jam.
He was spearing guys, cross-checking guys, two-handing guys in the back of the legs, screaming and yelling at the ref. And I'll tell you the last thing, that Brandon Hagel, he earned some points in my book because I just thought of him as like the skill guy from Tampa that gets his 35. And when he dropped the gloves, I had to look. I'm like, who is that? And it was Hagel. And I was like, that is – I totally changed my opinion of that guy.
What I loved about it was what he had to say afterward. Like, you catch him in the intermission, and he's like, I wasn't backing down from him. Like, he was not going to back down from that fight. Then even today, I think we have the audio of it if we want to play it. He's out here talking about, like, why don't we play? Here was Brandon Hagel today talking about, fighting for the country.
No, I think it's going to be the same way. I think it's two countries. I mean, listen, what happened the other night, I think I did it for the flag and not for the cameras.
I love that comment.
I loved it so much.
Comment, man.
Well, and then he goes on to talk about, we don't have group chats over here, which obviously is a reference to the group chat moment that was going viral with the Kachucks. But I love it. And Brandon Hagel, he's making big-time fans out here in Canada, isn't he? With the fight going up against Kachuk, it was a pretty good spirited tilt to really set the tone. And then to come out with comments like that, he's making a lot of fans up here up north.
Listen, they're playing for keeps. And on both sides, though, I got to give the U.S. credit, too. Like, those guys.
Damn good, Jamie.
Damn good. And you know what? There's not a lot of weakness in that lineup. I will say this. You and I were talking earlier. Like, I think Team Canada can win this. You look at the injuries that U.S. has. It's tough. You'd mentioned it's tough to run the table, beat the same
Jamie,
team twice.
Every time I've sat with Bob McKenzie in a lot of World Juniors, and he's always made one comment. It's difficult in a tournament like this to beat the same team twice. So if you get your licks in early and you're going to face them again, it's difficult to close them out again. And it's just it's a Bob McKenzie comment. It's a really good comment, and it usually proves true in a tournament like this. Can Canada pull it off? I would say they're still an underdog in Boston, and the most important part of the game is going to be how they withstand the first 10 minutes of the hockey game.
Absolutely.
Because the United States is going to come out, and they're going to be absolutely try to run them out of the building. They're try to gain momentum. They started quickly again against Sweden yesterday, but they didn't get the job done. But they're going to come out. They know it's the rematch. They're on their turf now. How Canada responds in that first 10 minutes, if they can break even, be up or down only one, it's going to be all. If they get blown out in the first 10 minutes, the game will be over.
And you know what? I don't think this is the elephant in the room. Like, Binnington's got to make the saves that he should, right? Like that's the difference, right? That game Saturday night, you're one save away, right? Like, we all didn't love the Gensel goal. I thought Hellebuck made a couple big saves, especially on the power play, in tight, jamming away. But we're showing it right now. You got to make that save. Like, that's through the body. Even he knows it. He's got to make that save. But that being said, Canada only scored one goal, so you got to find a way to be better as well. There was just so much to unpack.
I know.
And you know what? There was that McAvoy. Like, he hit McDavid twice. McDavid was horizontal.
Four
in the
times.
Air.
4 times. He got him 4 times.
He took a chunk out of Crosby, too, on the power play behind the net.
I was sitting beside Ryan Rishaug, and he said, I've never seen that guy hit like that once, let alone 4 times. McAvoy was all over him. And now, guys, we have the circus going on in Boston where it doesn't seem like McAvoy can play.
No.
They're flying in Quinn Hughes. Like, are they going to Tanya Harding one of their other defensemen?
That's what I was going to ask you that.
I would... Like, how good does a player have to be to Tanya Harding one of your own defensemen so they can play?
Honestly, though, why does it have to get to that? Like, we're at a point here where, first of all, Quinn Hughes was selected to the team originally, so why you have to go through the rigmarole to get him into the lineup doesn't make sense to me. Like, Thomas Harley, I could understand that. He wasn't originally selected, and he would come in as a replacement.
It was all laughable. It was almost like they were making up different rules each day went on.
They seem to be doing that.
Like, Dregs was like, he can't... I think Dregs found it humorous, too. He's like, Thomas Harley can't come from Boston to Montreal. And then Makar was sick, and Dregs was like, Harley's in Montreal. They decided that was okay. And then Harley was behind a door watching practice, and as soon as Makar skated off, he skated on. I'm like, how goofy is this? Yeah. They clearly didn't know what to do, and they were making up stuff as the days went on.
Yeah, I would just it's best on best hockey. I mean, a guy like Quinn Hughes deserves to be there. If he's healthy, I mean, the reason why he wasn't there at the start of the tournament is because he wasn't healthy. You gave him that full week off. He was able to rest, recover. Let him fly into this game. Especially now that McAvoy's going to be out, right? They have to respond. Or they have to fill in that spot somehow, and there's no better way for the Americans to do that than putting in Quinn Hughes.
And you know what? I've talked to a couple GMs already. I mean, they're holding their breath. I mean, these injuries aren't just like these aren't fourth liners that are getting injured. Boston's in one. They're trying to make the playoffs, and McAvoy, by all accounts, spent the night in the hospital last night. Both Kachucks are banged up. Auston Matthews, that kind of just flew under the radar. I think it was the coach, Mike Sullivan's like, yeah, McAvoy and Matthews, upper body injuries. We'll be. And I think everybody in Toronto's like, what? Because I read that, I was like, what are we dealing with here? And then they backed it off, going, oh, he's fine.
Yeah, he'll play Thursday, and
I don't read anything into Matthews not playing the other day because the game meant nothing. Like they were going to the finals. They could have picked anybody. Obviously, McAvoy seems like he's injured. But isn't the latest report that Quinn Hughes is not eligible to play on Thursday night? Isn't that like the latest?
They got to wait to see if some injury occurs, similar to the way that Thomas Harley happened. And that's
dude, how greasy will it be if all of a sudden, like Jake Sanderson
sniffles? He's got the sniffles tomorrow. He's going to wake up with a
that would be a greasy thing to do to the kid. And I don't like that, but I think if this guy's flying from Vancouver to Boston, he's putting his gear on Thursday night.
Yeah, I agree. But he should be able to. I know this is a made-up tournament. They could change the rules on the fly. It's not like set in stone. They don't have to go to some massive committee and go, hey, we got to get this pushed through or have some hearing at midnight. They go, yeah, okay. Like you've got 4 teams and 4 nations and this is a league-created event. You can add it in. And Quinn Hughes, you mentioned it, for these countries, this is their best. So Quinn Hughes was originally selected to the team. He should be able to play. And expand the rosters. For the final game, bring your 20, your best 25, your best 27. Put 20 on the ice. Let's see if you can win. That's the way I look at it.
I completely agree. And I'm not sure why there's such red tape when it comes to this. It just makes no sense. Let's get the best players out on the ice. And realistically, I'm curious, though, because you watched that game Saturday night. I mean, this is going to be a difficult game to live up to. I guess now there's even more on the line with the championship. But how do you follow up Saturday with an even better banger tomorrow night? Is that even possible?
I don't think that they're nonsense that happened on Saturday night. I don't know if you're going to duplicate that. I don't know if one team wants to risk getting an extra 2 and starting the game shorthanded. As crazy. And by the way, I love how all the rough and tough hockey fans crawled out from underneath rocks and said, "Oh, that's so amazing! I love that."
Sock'em hockey.
All the turkeys that are like, "That's ruining the game. It's disgusting." And they're all like, "Man, that was really awesome." It was like, I don't know. All of a sudden, all those guys all the nerds are back being hockey fans because of that. Anyway, I don't think that's going to happen again on Thursday night.
No.
Although it wouldn't put it past these guys to just start the game crazy again, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
I think there'll be lots of scrums. I think there'll be lots of pushing and John and that. But the one thing that really surprised me, guys, was the intensity.
Yeah.
I did not. What do you always say, Al's brother? I don't see that happening.
I just don't see it happening.
I did not see that happening. I thought this was going to be intense, but guys were going to play hard, and it was going to be a nice no-hitter, lots of speed, and some skill on display. Guys were playing for keeps.
They were.
And it wasn't just Canada, USA, Jamie. It was Canada, Finland, USA, Sweden. It was like, we're playing this. We're not going to embarrass ourselves. I mean, you see the mess that the NBA has got themselves in with this All-Star game that they tried to put on again. It's beyond embarrassing.
It was unwatchable.
And even the players have come out and said, like Jokic came out and said, that's enough. This is done. It's over. We have to focus on something else. So the players said, we're going to make this worth everybody's while. One of the Tkachuk brothers said they waited 9 years for that hockey game, and it obviously showed on Saturday night. It's just a great. It's just a great exhibition for the game.
I think Jack Eichel, who's won a Stanley Cup, mind you, and it could be prisoner of the moment comments, but I think Jack Eichel came out and said, "This is going to be the biggest game of my life." Talking about
the guy's won a Stanley Cup.
Exactly, and he's saying stuff like this. Now, if you ask him 10 years down the line, would you rather that ring or your cup ring, he might have a different story, a different answer, but it's going to be a hell of a game. And, I mean, you look at it from a Canadian perspective, yes, I think you look at there was definitely some things that they need to clean up. I like what we saw yesterday. John Cooper changed up the lines. Marner dropped off that line. You ended up putting Braden Points up with Connor McDavid. You saw some offense start to generate. They finally got it going, scored some goals. But the difference that is going to be made here is Cale Makar is going to play in this game Saturday night or Thursday, and he did not on Saturday. That's going to be a massive addition to the team, obviously.
100%. If you get Makar back, they also know how to play. Like they know how the game is going to be played. So I think, you said you thought that Canada would be underdogs. I think Canada might have the edge. You got nothing to lose on the road. You go in and
I only said that, Jamie, because they lost on Saturday night.
You're right.
And they're in the States.
You're right. It was a 1-goal game, though, and to me, I don't know. Like Saturday night, yes, the building was electric. It'll be electric in Boston, but these guys have played playoff games. Jordan Binnington went into Boston and won a Game 7 on the road. Like they've played
again.
Well, he's going to have to do that. You're right, because I thought he was just okay. I thought he made some good saves. They made it interesting yesterday. Like that, I thought that was going to be a shutout.
I tried to explain it on SportsCenter last night. It was like the empty net goals are score effects, and you've got the odd man advantage, and there's talented players out there. But it seems like the Lindell goal led to that craziness. If he just and I know the guy was on a sharp angle, and he's a pretty good player, but I don't know. You don't see a ton of guys, defensemen especially, score that goal. And that leads to that craziness. And it always seems like every game he's got 92% of the game locked down, and then there's just that one. There's been that one goal. Against the Swedes, it was Kempe. Against the States, it was Gensel. And against the Finns, it was Lindell there. And it's like he's almost got it covered, and the players and the coaches have talked about the margins being razor thin. And if you play your nuts off and you've got a 2-1 win and he lets up a soft one, it could cost you the tournament. So
I agree.
I keep saying great performance, but there was that one. That one might cost him everything. So he's got to lock it down. And you'd have to think that Hellebuck is going to be dialed in on Thursday night. So it could be that one play. That's what's special about the game. That's what brings out the intensity. Because every time you're on the ice and you touch the puck, it could be a factor on the winning side or the losing. That's why those guys are the best players on earth.
I kept thinking, and this is going to be more of a conversation, let's call it for next week. You see this Sidney Crosby playing, for keeps, and he closed the game out yesterday. Said
that's the best empty net goal I've ever seen. That's like big. And that's the way, if you're a kid watching or listening, that's why you screw around and do little stuff with intensity. He hits the guy, he gets up, he grabs it with his hand, he throws it on the ice, and he whips it down to the net. Like, that guy's been amazing. Sid the Kid has been unbelievable.
But, so this is, and we can kick the can down the road. You have to think at some point, like he goes, I'm coming off this tournament, and I'm going back to Pittsburgh, and we've got to me, there's
ignite the fire back in Sid.
He sees his buddy. He spent 2 weeks with McKinnon and Makar.
What do you think? He passed it to the slot yesterday. Don't you think he saw that and was like, "Oh,
do that a little more?
Want to do that some more?"
We will. I'm telling you, that'll be one of our segments in the future, because to me, these guys are getting a little taste. They get to know guys on other teams. Not that they don't know them already, but a guy in Sid's position, not going to make the playoffs. He has to be looking and go, maybe there is a sniff that I would move on. I don't know.
He's not making the playoffs this year. He's not making the playoffs his second last year, and he's not making the playoffs his last year. Why in the hell would Sid the Kid want to go out like that? That's a crazy. We've been talking about it for 2 years. Why do you want to go down that road? Get him out.
No,
this guy turned into Brian Hayes over here. Look at you, O-Dog, turning into.
I don't understand it. Like, I know he's gone to bat saying we got to try to win one more time in Pittsburgh. Enough is enough. You're not even making the playoffs in Pittsburgh.
No, and regardless of whatever happens in that situation in the future, I think that's why we're seeing Sid play at the level he's playing at right now. Like this is his Stanley Cup this year. He knows he's not going to compete unless something changes. He has that change of heart, and he has to get out and go to Colorado or whatever. But this is his chance to win something to end his career, essentially. Sure, a couple of years at the Olympics, he'll probably still be good enough to play there. But this is where he can really make meaningful, be a meaningful contributor and still win and be the guy. Like, to me, I don't know, if you're looking at the MVP of the tournament right now, Canada goes on to win. I mean, Sidney Crosby's got to be up at the top of the list right now.
I think him and McKinnon have been their best players. Yeah, I mean, Sid has has been a difference maker every game.
Yep.
And to me, that's what you need, is a guy who's a difference maker. And Ty will go to Sid. If people go, okay, we think it's McKinnon, we think it's Crosby, Ty will go to Sid. That's the way I feel. I think he's been that good.
But I will say, I think tomorrow night is set up. The table is set. It's a McJesus moment. I think Sid's just going to say, you know what? I've showed you the way thus far.
Yeah.
It's now time for you to take the torch. And it's one of those best player in the world moments. And it is the Four Nations. It's not the Olympics. It's not the World Cup. But this is a moment where you can just let everybody know that you are the best player in the world. I truly believe tomorrow night is Connor McDavid's moment.
Yeah.
He's got to have it.
You're right. I mean, is it? No, it's Thursday.
Thursday
It's Thursday. I was like,
why they're taking 2 days off in between? I don't understand that.
That's a dumb decision.
And then they're back to action. Like, they got to be back and playing Saturday night hockey.
So much momentum too right now. So much momentum. They could just be, right back at it tomorrow night. I get it, but at the end of the day, everyone will be watching. This has been great for hockey. I was wrong. I think there was a lot of people that were skeptical about it. But it's been great. There hasn't been really any negatives whatsoever. There has been individual negatives, like this Pettersson in Vancouver. Like he's in one. Like he was no good in the tournament.
No.
And now the fans are.
Would he play 9 minutes yesterday?
He was a ghost yesterday. I felt bad. I didn't feel bad for him, but I was like, you're digging a hole, Junior. Like, you're digging a big hole. He didn't look like he belonged in the tournament yesterday, and I thought he would be one of the spotlight players. Jamie, you know how I've talked about that guy in the last 5 years. Just a great elite talent, but he is in no man's land right now, and it's not good. And now he's got to go back to Van. And what the hell are they going to do? Because with JT Miller and Pettersson, it was like they were tracking towards being a cup contender. They got the coach. They had the record last season. And now Miller's with the New York Rangers, and this guy's game is nowhere to be found. So, and everyone's like, well, maybe Jimmy will trade him too. Good luck trading that guy right now with that ticket attached to him.
What would you? Yeah, why would you even want to trade him at this point? But he makes 11.6. He's still young. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to hope that he finds it, turns the clock back.
I thought this tournament was going to be that chance to do that, though. Like, get that reset, get out of Vancouver, get into a different culture, different dressing room around different people, and a winning mentality around some of the guys.
Brother, there's only one place it looks like that he needs to get into, and that's a gym.
Well,
honestly, he looks like a little kid out there, where it's like he gets pushed around, not effective. His game is completely gone. It is completely gone. He is a third line. Well, that tournament's the best of the best. It'll be different in the NHL, but not much. He was a third line player where it was like minimal impact.
Well, the crazy part is when you let's look at Saturday night's game. There was 8 first lines. When you look at it, right? Every one of those lines were like a first line in the NHL. And I had somebody say this to me yesterday or 2 days ago. The shots were like 25-24. Yeah. And you had the best players in the world playing. Yeah. That's how little room there is out there. Right. That's hard these guys check.
But both coaches said, you guys are the most talented players in the world, but you will not win this thing if you do not commit to both sides of the puck. And they showed that they're both committed, and it goes back to the margins being razor thin, and it goes back to Sidney Crosby, one of the best players to ever play, had the one turnover that was the difference in the score.
Yep.
Coughed it up just inside the blue line. Both coaches want their Ds to be very active. If one player crosses the blue line and butchers a pass, you're going to be screwed because everybody's going the other way.
Yeah, and it was fast. Like, that game was fast.
Yeah, it was one of the best games I've seen. It started off with a bang, 3 bangs actually, consecutively, and then it really settled in. Connor scored, got the place erupting, and man, what a game it turned out to be. And we get part 2 again on Thursday. I'm excited for it. Go ahead, quickly.
Noodles, you talk about fast. That Nathan McKinnon, I was sitting beside little Jimmy in Montreal, and we were watching practice. And this guy started skating up the ice. I'm not kidding. The whole building started to shake.
Yeah.
this guy's a freakazoid when he gets cooking on the ice. It was like thunderous, the noise it was making. I'm like, that's like a horse coming around the corner. It was like the building was shaking. I couldn't believe that guy in practice. It was insane.
There's just so much power. Like, I remember, was it the overtime game against Sweden where a couple of times he went coast to coast? It's just like, this guy's something else. Like, the power in his stride is unparalleled. Like, you may got the speed in McDavid, but you got the power in McKinnon. Both of which gonna, I think, play a big part in Thursday's game for Canada. So we obviously will continue to tee that up throughout the show. Chris Johnston gonna come up on the other side. Johnny gonna join us at 5:05. And boys, there was some Blue Jays news, somewhat non-news, no extension for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Our boy Keegan Matheson gonna join us in the 6 o'clock hour to go through that situation. All that more coming up. I'm Mike DiStefano with Noodles and O-Dog. You're watching Overdrive on TSN2 and on TSN 1050. Overdrive continues on the TSN radio network and also up on TSN2. It's Mike DiStefano filling in for Brian Hayes. Got Noodles and O-Dog with me. CJ will join us in just a minute. Get back into what's going on at the Four Nations tournament. But before we went to break, we were kind of talking about the nonsense that went down in the last 24 hours between the Blue Jays and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So for those who were unaware, there was a deadline set by Vladdy that he needed or wanted a contract extension done by the time that they started spring training. Today, we had their first full player, full team spring training workout, and no deal was done. So as of now, it appears that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will be heading to free agency next year, and I'm sure a lot of Jays fans not too happy about that situation.
Guys, it's people are ranting and raving about it. There's some people that are like, this management's insane, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, well, I wouldn't have really paid him that money either. So I don't. They've decided that they don't want to give him that money. The only question I have is, why don't you want to pay him? And if you didn't want to pay him, why didn't you trade him? Because
that's a valid question.
What the hell's the sense of letting him play out his tenure and then he just walks for nothing? Like, that would be insane. Like, and it's not trade him this year. It was like 2 years ago or whatever it was. You knew you weren't going to pay him or you didn't want to, but I don't know. We can get into it later. It's just it's crazy business just to have him walk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we'll get into it later. We're going to be joined by Keegan Matheson of MLB.com. But now joining us on the line is our man, Chris Johnston, TSN Hockey Insider. What's going on, CJ?
Not much, guys. How you doing?
We're doing well.
Good.
CJ, you've covered a lot of hockey in your lifetime. Like, where did that game Saturday night stack up for you in terms of excitement and hype? And do you think Thursday can live up to what we saw on Saturday?
Man, I hope so. I think it's going to be a pretty high bar, though. Difficult to probably top the way that all played out. But, this is such a unique moment in time. It's been so long since players have had a chance to play in these tournaments. Obviously, most of the guys on the ice are doing it really for the first time in a best-on-best for their country. You've got some of the political tensions and things going on and, the anthem being booed. You start off with those fights. I mean, you couldn't recreate that if you tried. Now they get a second chance at each other. I just think the stakes are probably a little high to think that it's going to top it, but part of what makes me excited sitting here on, late Tuesday afternoon for a Thursday night game is I just don't know what's going to happen. And as much as I was, looking forward to that one Saturday, I wouldn't have guessed what we saw in the first period, especially. I don't really have anything to compare it to. I mean, the Olympics in Vancouver is probably the craziest buildings I've been in and the level of hockey and everything we saw. This isn't the Olympics, but it was quite a spectacle, and you can be sure the Canadian guys are excited to get another shot at the U.S. after losing on the weekend.
So, CJ, what is the update as far as the McAvoy, Quinn Hughes situation? Like, why in the hell would Quinn Hughes fly from Vancouver to Boston and not play? Like, I think if he's showing up in Boston, he's playing.
I agree. I don't think he would come for one game as much as everybody wants to be in the building that night. Quinn Hughes has been through a long injury absence. Obviously, the Canucks season's getting up and rolling again. It doesn't make sense for him to come in just as just to watch the game and be a cheerleader. And, obviously his brother's on the team and all those sorts of things. But you have to think he's going to find his way in. Where it stands right now is, what the league and the Players Association have said is basically there would have to be another injury for him to actually be activated and join the roster and have a chance to play. I don't know if that position is going to change, O-Dog. I know you were in Montreal. I mean, you understand the rules have been kind of fluid on this thing. Maybe the U.S. has another injury beyond, what's
you're
going
saying
on with
that
Charlie
loosely,
McAvoy.
CJ.
Yeah.
Are these guys making up a playbook as each day goes on, or what?
I don't hate it though. I mean, I'm glad Canada didn't have to play a game with 5 defensemen and 13 forwards. I think that would have been absurd, and they were potentially in that position with, the situation with Makar after Theodore got injured. They were able to avoid that. Quinn Hughes was part of the American team, had to miss this tournament, was ruled out on the last day in favor of Jake Sanderson because of his injury. I mean, there's some risk to playing him too. As great a player as he is, his last game, I believe, was January 31st. And he hasn't been part of the team. So, we'll see how it all shakes out here. But I'm with you in O-Dog, can't report anything, but feels like he wouldn't come all this way just to watch the game from the press box or the stands.
CJ, how nervous is a bunch of general managers throughout the league seeing all these injuries or potential injuries go down right now?
Well, the general managers are getting especially nervous because maybe some of their owners aren't happy either, right? I mean, it's hard to get around the fact that the sort of counter side to the conversation about how great the tournament's been, how awesome it is that the players are engaged and they care, is that guys are getting hurt. And the U.S. team, we see them obviously players sitting out for precautionary reasons, like Matthew Tkachuk last night, Auston Matthews, Brady Tkachuk was knocked out of that game. Alexander Barkov went hobbling down a hallway in the Finnish game against Sweden the other day. Obviously, Cale Makar missed Saturday's game. I mean, we're talking absolute all-stars, players that are counted on for their teams. And, who knows, who else might come back from this thing and be a little bit nicked up and might need some time off. I mean, especially the players that play in the final game Thursday. Friday they're back with their NHL teams, and most of the league plays again on Saturday. Some teams on Saturday afternoon. I mean, the players are going to jump right back into the season, and it wouldn't surprise me if even some guys we don't know of right now is injured have to take a little bit of time off after this. But personally, I'm willing to trade it for what we've gotten here. But some NHL teams, it's a different kind of thing, and we've seen in the past sometimes with these mid-season tournaments that can have impact on standings. I'm going way back, but the Ottawa Senators were one of the top teams in 05-06, and Dominic Hasek was their starting goalie. He got injured at the Olympics, and it wasn't the same on the other side. I mean, I hope that isn't the case for any NHL teams coming out of this, but you can't rule it out as a possibility.
Well, CJ, we kind of brought it up earlier how it went under the radar. The Auston Matthews injury was kind of like, oh, yeah, he's not going to play, upper body soreness, and he's expected to play Thursday. But, do you think that he's getting a little bit of a hall pass for how little this is being talked about? Because I would imagine, it's just based on the way he's played in this tournament, Sidney Crosby wouldn't have taken a night off here.
Well, I don't know about that. I think really in Austin's case, there was nothing to play for in that game. I mean, it was just the last round robin game didn't affect literally anything for the U.S. If you're not feeling quite right, I mean, what's the harm in taking a few extra days? I'm sure the Leafs didn't mind that, and my sense is the Leafs aren't that concerned about with the medical file there that this is something that they expect to linger. So, I don't know that there's any criticism to be levied his way. I mean, Matthews was pretty darn good in the game Saturday, playing 200 feet for the U.S. against Canada, and they want to put him in a position where he's at his best to give them a chance to win the championship on Thursday night, and then we'll see where he's at when he gets back to Toronto. But the U.S. had a bunch of guys sit out that game because they didn't need to win it. It was a different circumstance for Canada. You had Makar come back in and play big minutes. Obviously, Crosby, McKinnon, the star guys, made sure that they found a way through that one yesterday, and we all get the final we want.
With Chris Johnston, our TSN hockey insider, talking about, Sidney Crosby and just the unbelievable tournament that he's having here, made a massive play to kind of seal the deal with that empty netter. Just based on the way he's played, I mean, does this kind of feel like this is he realizes this could be his final moment to do something big for his country? Kind of like this is his final Stanley Cup almost.
Well, I'm sure he's got the Olympics circled for next year. So we're not at the final hurrah, but obviously you get to Sidney's age. He's the oldest guy playing in the tournament at 37. Any professional athlete understands that it's not a long career, but he's getting towards the real final moments of one. And, it's amazing he's still able to play at the level he is. Like, let's not forget that he missed the last two Penguins games before the Four Nations event. I think it's pretty clear he's not at 100% here, but he's just had so much success in these environments. I think he brings something even more than we see on the ice to teams like this. I think he's a very important guy in terms of bringing a team together and sort of keeping it together when things get stressful. And even for all the stars on these teams, I think it does get stressful when you're down to single elimination games and a lot of eyeballs on you. And, for some guys, it's still also on sort of new territory for them wearing the national team sweater. So, Crosby to me is still just such a linchpin for the Canadian team. And, I certainly hope he's there next February, but, that's probably it. This game Thursday and, what we see next year at the Olympics in Milan for him in a Team Canada jersey. If anyone can pull a Yager and play into his 40s, it's probably Sid, but, there's just not a lot of players doing that at this point. And so we should savor all these games that you get a chance to watch him because he's still at a pretty high level, compared to his peers.
Do you think he's at least getting a sniff that things could be better elsewhere? An important example is who he's playing with, his line mate, Nate McKinnon. Do you think that could fester into anything, CJ?
I don't see it happening in season. I think it's an off-season discussion and consideration for Sid. I mean, he thought last summer, basically all summer long, about his contract extension with the Penguins. He ends up signing it in September. But he's a very methodical guy. And, I think the best way to answer that question, is that, yes, his mind, even just a little bit, might be on the fact that that's a possibility. I think that the writing's on the wall in terms of what's going on in Pittsburgh. Doesn't guarantee he's ever going to want to leave there, but, I think if it happens in the summertime once the dust settles on a season, when he can have more conversations with the people he needs to in his personal life, with the organization, and they go from there. But, I sort of feel like he's going to get a chance to write whatever ending he wants in terms of if he wants it to be in Pittsburgh, if he wants to be a career-long member of that organization, they're not going to force him out or anything like that. He'll get to do so. And if it's maybe having a chance to chase the Stanley Cup one last one somewhere else, I'm pretty sure that they would find a way to get him to that team. But, as I mentioned, I don't see that being a relevant conversation before March 7th. And this deadline, it's probably to be dealt with, in the lead up to the draft and at some point in the off season.
Any noise around Canadian goaltending heading into this last game?
Well, always. I mean, and my group text is full of buddies saying, what are they doing? And, my only response is, well, Binnington, to me, hasn't lost them the game yet. I understand we can find goals or moments where you're not feeling totally comfortable, but I kind of think that that's what this is now. I mean, Canada doesn't have a Hall of Famer in net anymore. It's not 2004 or 2006 or 2014 with Carey Price. I mean, this is a different deal, and the assignment for Binnington is just not to let in too many. And the one game they lost, he only allowed 2, and I think a Canadian team has got to score 3 goals to win a game. So I think quite honestly, if you could have them sign up that he's only going to let in 2 on Thursday night, the coaching staff would take it and would try their chances at, with a lineup with McDavid, McKinnon, Makar, Crosby, Point, Marner. I mean, that they'll find a way to get 3 goals in that game. So, I think the time to make a change, if they were going to do it, was probably before yesterday's game. And so I don't think anyone other than Jordan Binnington is even under consideration to start in the final.
All right, CJ, appreciate taking the time as always, pal. We'll chat again later, buddy. Enjoy the festivities in a couple of days too.
Yeah, can we get some heat down here? It's getting a little too wintry, but other than that, this has been an awesome event. All the fire's been on the ice. That's
for sure. All right, CJ, take care, pal. There he goes. Chris Johnston, TSN Hockey Insider. Yeah, Noodles, what did you make of the decision? Like, it does seem like at this point they have to go back to Binnington now, right?
I mean, to me, if they would have made the change, they would have gone to Aiden Hill yesterday.
Yeah,
and then win the game and then go to Hill in the finals.
Do you think there was an argument yesterday for Aiden Hill, or no? Or was it just a discussion?
I think there's a discussion. There's always a discussion. The coaches, the goaltender coach. I see David Alexander's there, right? So he's a really good goalie coach. Now he is Binnington's guy, so that's probably leans towards Binner, anyways. But I agree with CJ. He hasn't lost them a game. He hasn't stolen one, but he hasn't lost them. And in their wins, like he's been right there. And so to me, I think they're pot committed with Binnington. They want to play a certain way. I would like to see others step up other than just the ones we've been talking about, McKinnon, Crosby, McDavid, and who else Point has been really good.
Yeah, he's been good.
But
they need a Cirelli to bang in a goal. They need a Reinhart goal. They need a Marner goal 5-on-5.
Yeah.
They need a Bennett. They need something. I said it yesterday. It's almost like to win this game, like the stakes are so high, there's like a combination or like there's a recipe for it.
Yeah.
One of your star players has a moment. You get some kind of depth guy like a Cirelli or a Braden Point or a Sam Bennett to chip in a goal. There's a special teams factor. Either you get a big power play goal or you kill a 5-on-3. And then there's the goaltending element. And whoever can get to that recipe first is going to win the hockey game. It's almost like those things all factor in. A legend scores where they stay a legend. A lesser light scores and they become a legend, saying that's why he was on the team. Goaltending and special teams. It's like there's that recipe or that kind of puzzle piece where whatever team can put in the pieces first is going to win.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you do need some special performances kind of outside the bubble, so we'll call it quote unquote depth. But, it wouldn't hurt for a defenseman to step up and be a difference maker outside of Makar, too, right? That Devon Toews has had 5 chances. Like, that guy's been in alone, man, and he hasn't really buried it. Like, there are some guys that are sniffing.
Morrissey, he can score, he can produce. He's someone who could come up with a nice timely goal at some point here. I actually liked Thomas Harley's game the other night when he stepped in and played.
A lot of people were like, why is that guy not, like, he should stay in?
Yeah.
Honestly, this guy went from like Cabo to Boston to Montreal to people saying should not come out of the lineup, and they took him out of the lineup.
Well, they were forced to. That's the thing. They can't keep him in. Now they need to wait for another injury to get him back into the lineup.
The rules changed, buddy. The rules said that if they wanted to play him, they could play him.
Well, the Nancy Kerrigan is coming, or whatever you called it. Tanya Harding.
Someone's going to Tanya Harding somebody on that U.S. team. I'll tell you that right now. Just an absolute baseball bat on the way to dinner. And Quinn Hughes will be playing tomorrow night.
I can guarantee that one. Let's see if there's 100% confirm at some point later on. We got confirm or deny coming up in the 6 o'clock hour. Mike Johnston going to join us at 5:05, and then we'll get back into the baseball talk too. Keegan Madison to join us at 6. We got some audio. Maybe we'll play that on the other side. Ross Atkins saying some absolute nonsense. That's all coming up next on Overdrive. Overdrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Mike DiStefano, Jamie Noodles McLennan, and the O-Dog Jeff O'Neill with you here. And today was a big deadline in Blue Jays land. Vladdy Guerrero Jr. did not sign his extension. And we got to hear from Vladdy, we got to hear from Ross Atkins, and we got to hear from Mark Shapiro. And there were some interesting comments that were said by all three parties. You want to hear some of the audio?
Fire away.
All right, let's listen to Ross Atkins, because this was quite the comment when asked if he and Vladdy were close to a deal.
Did you feel that you guys were close at any point?
It just depends on how you define close. It's just that's too big of a word to talk specifically about, and I'm not comfortable talking about numbers.
If close is too ambiguous a word, how would you characterize the gap between the two parties?
Not close enough, in order to reach an agreement.
Why would he say stuff like that? regardless of what's gone on here, like if you don't want to pay the guy, I really don't care. I would have thought long and hard about paying him too. But there's a PR spin to it where you just leak the numbers or something.
Oh, that's coming.
Yeah.
That's coming in the next couple of days. I can almost
that is
assure you
coming
that.
to save, because everybody, all they see is Vladdy's not signed, and then blurbs like that where it's like, well, we don't want to use the word close. It's just too complicated. Whatever the hell he said there, his PR is just off. Everybody hates that guy's guts.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, you cannot deny that. With failing to sign guys, and now this, it was like Vladdy was the last thing for the fan base to hang their hat on, but they still decided not to do it, and they got a PR nightmare on their hands going into the season. Dealing with this, they said the contract negotiation would be a distraction, guys. Dealing with this the whole season is a worse distraction. Worse.
It's going to be. It's a big distraction, but I wish they can't do it because it's their own player. They see something that they don't want to give $500 US to, or whatever the number is. I can't wait till the numbers do get leaked, because they might be $100 million apart. It might be 500 to 400 or 525 to 450 or something like that. But I mean, I don't think they're because to me, if you're close, even if you're
you would have figured it out.
Apart, find some middle ground.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground there right now.
They must not be all that close. Keegan Matheson will join us at 6:05. I'm sure he'll have a little bit more on the situation. Mike Johnston joining us next to kick off Hour 2 of Overdrive on TSN 2 and on TSN 1050.